Hi everybody, this is Matt from Slayer Games, here with another video going over the mechanics of the role-playing game Dragonslayer. Today's video is going to tie into our previous video about dice pools and how to build those. This one's going to be about skills and skill values. So without further ado, let's get into it. In this video, we're going to go over skills and skill values and how they work in the Dragonslayer role-playing game. First, there's two types of skills. We have physical skills on the left of the character sheet. Those are skills that are underneath agility, stamina, and strength. And then mental skills underneath charisma, intellect, and senses on the right side. Each attribute has 5 skills associated with them. The skill value, or the number next to each skill, so in Tark's example, larceny 1, mobility 2, those are the skill values 1 and 2. The higher the skill value, the more experienced or skilled the character is in that area of expertise. Most roles that you do in the game are going to be skill checks, which we'll get into how to do those here soon. So for example, a character with a skill value of 1, so in Tark's case, his larceny has a skill value of 1, they have no meaningful experience, training, or skill in that area of expertise. As skill values are raised higher, it represents a character having more experience and or skill in that area of expertise. So a character with a skill value of 2 maybe has a little bit of experience or skill. 3, they've received some training and have some experience, whereas 4, you started getting into characters being recognized as skilled in that area. The maximum that a skill can count as for a character is equal to the corresponding attribute. So in this case, Tark's agility is a 3 plus 3. So the highest any of Tark's agility skills can count is 6. Characters may also have what are called specialties, which are a way to increase skill values but only in certain situations, such as specialty bravery fighting dragons. So when the character is fighting a dragon, they receive a +1 to their bravery skill value. This is still limited by the value of the corresponding attribute. Next, we're going to talk about skill checks. Skill checks are the most common kind of role you're going to do in Dragonslayer. In fact, 95% of roles that you do in the game are skill checks. In the video on dice pools, we briefly talked about how to build those. You have a number of points equal to your skill value plus your modifiers. 2 points adds a d10 to your die pool. 1 point adds a +1. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail about skill checks here in this video. First, every skill check has a goal that you're looking for. That determines if you're successful or not when you make your skill check roll. Goals are set by the Game Master. The higher the goal, the more difficult the skill check is. Compare the result of your skill check with the goal set by the GM. If your result is lower than the goal set, then the action you were attempting has failed. If it is higher than the goal set, then you were successful in your action. If the result of your skill check is exactly the same as the goal set, then you have a success at cost. This means that you are successful in the action, but there is some cost associated with your action. We're going to take a step back and look at the result of skill checks real quick. First, when we were talking about dice pools in the previous video, we mentioned being able to add a +1 to the result of the die by spending 1 point. So this is called concentration modifiers. Concentration represents a character spending more time thinking about the action and focusing, giving them a modifier to that result. Whereas adding dice to the dice pool represents a character relying on their muscle memory or their training to carry them through. The maximum amount that a character can concentrate on a single roll is equal to half the number of points spent. So if you have 4 points to build a die pool, you cannot do more than a +2 to the result. So 2 points for 1 die and 2 points for a +2. Concentration modifies the result of your die roll. There's one other way to modify the result of a die roll. The attribute value for a skill determines the minimum that you can roll for that skill. So, for example, an extremely strong person cannot completely whiff a jump, an unarmed strike, whereas somebody who's incredibly intelligent isn't going to completely whiff a magic roll, a medicine roll. The minimum you can roll on any skill check is equal to half of the attribute value of the related attribute. So with our example character Tark, all of his physical attributes have attribute values of 3. With player characters, you always round up, so the minimum that any of the dice on his skill checks can roll is 2. So if he makes a skill check and rolls a 1, it counts as a 2. If his attribute value is 6, the minimum he could roll on any of the dice in his skill check is 3. If it's 8, the minimum you can roll is 4, and so on and so on. We have 2 more mechanics that we will go through before we do an example skill check real quick. The first is negative modifier. So we already know that positive modifiers add to the number of points you have to build your die pool. Negative modifiers will affect your die roll. So they're kind of the opposite of concentration. If you do a +2 concentration, then you add 2 to the die that you roll. If negative modifiers will subtract from your die result. So for instance, if you roll an 8 and you have a -2 modifier, your skill check counts as a 6. So negative modifiers are applied to your skill check, giving you your end result after you subtract them. The last mechanic to go over is critical successes. Anytime any of the dice in your die pool roll a natural 10, they have a chance to become a critical success. So all the dice that roll a 10 unmodified, you'll roll them again, and on a 9 or a 10, they count as a critical success. This will count for all dice in your dice pool. So if you roll 5 dice and they all roll a 10, you roll all of them again, each of them having a chance to become a critical success. If any of the dice that rolled an unmodified 10 then roll a 9 or a 10, then your skill check is a critical success. The Game Master will come up with an additional or enhanced effect for your skill check. For attacks, this is usually a critical strike. For other things, the Game Master may determine that maybe your spell goes off a little bit quicker, or doesn't cost any BP, heals the maximum value. It's up to the Game Master. All right, now that we've learned a little bit about skills and skill checks, we're going to do an example skill check with Tark, our example character. So for this, we're going to do a bravery skill check. So to begin with, Tark has a 4 in bravery. This gives him 4 points to build a die pool with. So in this example, we're going to give him 2 points to give a D10 to his die pool. He can have a concentration value up to half of his points, so he can do up to +2 at 1 point per plus. We're going to do that and give him 1 die +2 for this example. So he'll roll that 1 die. If he had added a second die, he'd roll them together. He's got a 3. 3 is over half of his charisma's attribute value, so it's not modified by that. He rolled did a concentration modifier of +2, so his end result is a 5. So that's the basics on how skills and skill checks work. More detail can be found in Chapter 5 on skills, and you're always welcome to ask on our website, Facebook, Instagram, or the Discord server if you need more guidance on how this works.